Hi, everybody, and welcome to Photographer's Coffee Morning. This week we have something a little bit different going on. We have Cody and Austin from Goodlight Presets Company, and we're going to be talking about how they got to where they are today. We're going to look a little bit into the history of Goodlight and who they're targeted at, what these presets are for, and how to get the best out of them. So, with that said, Cody and Austin, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, man.
Thank you.
For anybody not familiar with you guys, do you want to just give people a little bit of history and let them know like how you got into the industry, what made you decide to start on Goodlight, and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, sure. So my history is sort of boring. I got into photography when I was like 14 and 15 years old, and I have just never stopped doing photography for my whole life. So started in high school and started doing wedding photography just to make extra money. Very briefly went to college for 2 months and then dropped out and just started doing weddings from the time I was 19, and now I'm 36. So that's my history, and yeah, just a wedding photographer my whole life.
That is the most abridged history I think I've ever heard. You've gone from like birth photography, 3 weeks of college, and then straight back to photography again, and then now. But for anybody that doesn't know, I'm going to do a little bit of talking up for you. Like Austin's
Okay.
work is absolutely stunning. If you want to check him out while you're listening to this podcast, as long as you're not driving, just to kind of put that out there again. His Instagram handle is Trenholm Photo, TRENHOLM Photo, and I'll put a link in the show notes. So feel free to check that out while we're talking. And Cody, do you want to introduce yourself as well, so we can kind of get a bit of a feel for who you are and where you've come from?
Yeah, I'm Cody. My photography company is Hunter Ryan Photo, and we've been shooting weddings full time for at least 12 years, I'd say. But I've done way too many things to list on this before that. I think, as Austin might know, but I think I've always had a camera in hand. Big time in my family. My grandpa was an astronomer and worked on the Hubble telescope and the Voyager telescope. And he's gone now. And he was a astronomy professor also. And it took me a long time to even realize that he was a photographer of the stars. But yeah, pretty neat. And then we ended up in weddings pretty much on accident. But yeah, it's been a long time. It's been amazing, and it's been a cool journey. And we've traveled all over the place and shot weddings, and yeah. And then a few years ago, we started Goodlight.
I think Cody's in witness protection program. He's had so many jobs and he's moved so many times. I think he's secretly some kind of a spy or something. But
That would explain his insane tech skills. I'm not going to lie. Like of all the people that I've ever spoken to, he's the only person that can get on my nerdy level. It's like there's not many.
forget the tech skills. There's the building skills. There's the firearm skills. There's the hunt. There's the camping skills. He's definitely something weird about Cody. I don't know what it is.
I think he's just practiced his American accent. He's actually James Bond. That's all it is. But with that said, for anybody trying to follow along, like in terms of following the work and seeing what Cody's like body of work looks like, his Instagram handle is Hunter Ryan Photo. So feel free to take a look at that again while we're chatting. As much as I hate to say it, because your work is stunning and you both have a really distinctive voice, that isn't really what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about basically your brainchild, Goodlight Presets. Now, for those that don't know, I have been teaching workflow and color correction for around about a year now, and obviously for a long time before that informally. But very often we end up landing on your presets and profiles. Like photographers from all over the world working in completely different conditions that have massively divergent styles. They all seem to kind of gravitate towards the way that Goodlight works. But for me, I'm really interested in finding out what led you to start this. Like, what made you decide that, you know what, we need another preset company in the world? Like, what made you think you had something unique to add to this game? And obviously it's been massively successful, but what led you to dipping your toe into the water?
The way that you phrased it is how we both thought for a long time. We thought to ourselves, do we really need another preset company? And for a long time, even though people would ask us if we make presets or if we're going to release something, or even if we ourselves were like, man, we should make something because we're not happy with what's available, that was always the block, because there's just so many preset companies, and it's sort of a cliche, and it still is, to be honest with you. But I think that combined with like a couple of epiphanies and sort of Cody definitely, when he gets interested in something, he just like dives really deep into it, which is great because I don't. But basically, I think one day Cody and I we watched a video. I think we watched a film, a wedding film, or a YouTube video. I can't remember. And he both said, "Why? How come this person who's shooting a video format that isn't raw and is just sort of like a dumb format can get a better film look than we can get with our raw footage, like our raw files?" And then that led us down the LUT path and figuring all that out. Well, it led Cody down the LUT path and figuring all that out. And then one day Cody told me he thought he could make something really good. And so we did.
Yeah, basically when Adobe came out with Profiles, what year was that? 18?
2018, I think. Yeah.
When they came out with Profiles, that was the big moment that was like, okay, what is this? What can we do with this? Will they open it up? Or do we have access to Profiles? Right in the beginning, it was quite unknown what the potential would be. But when that came out, because we had both used basically every type of preset you can think of, and we'd always been tweaking stuff, always messing with stuff, trying to get the best look. And when that profile thing came out, it was like, what is this? What can we do with this? So I dove into it, started looking into it, called up Austin, and I said, hey, man, let's look into this. Because my main thing was I didn't want to do anything that was slider based, because in Lightroom, if you just build everything on sliders, there's only so much you can do. And a big piece of it back then was, it wasn't that granular. So when Profiles came out and opened up just a whole new avenue, I said, hey, let's see if we can do something with this, because I don't want to make anything that's even anything close to anything else. And so we dove into it, started looking into it, and that's how it happened. Basically, it just was. It came out of. It basically came out of those Profiles.
That makes perfect sense. And like you said, you took a look-based approach to it. So rather than thinking, I need to use the HSL panel, which like only affects the whole color range, you could do things like choose just the shadow areas. When they appear as this level of green, it should now remap to slightly brighter green or a slightly darker green. Or like, you can make hugely granular controls, and like they call them like 4D LUTs, don't they? When they've got like lots and lots of different variations, and you can remap and move things. And one of the reasons why I do so frequently recommend Goodlight is because a lot of the preset methods will use up Lightroom's control just to get you base level look, when actually what you really want, especially as somebody working in the wedding industry or events or documentary, is more room to correct things later. And by shifting that focus from every other panel in Lightroom to the profile, it means that you can do a lot of the heavy lifting without having to take away your ability to correct later. So you can do things like maybe make the greens a little bit less saturated later on, because you've not taken all the saturation out just to get your base level look. It was a really innovative approach.
That's what tipped me over the edge of deciding, okay, I think the world could use one more preset company. And it is one of those things where we both are, and still are, and were when we made this company, very busy full-time wedding photographers. So it was very daunting to say, okay, we're going to start this entire side project that now takes up quite a bit of time. But I'm so glad that we did, because in the beginning it was like, it's a preset company, I'm not sure if we want to do this. And then Cody showed me something that was really good, and I was like, okay, this is different, let's try it. And now we're like we were talking about earlier, I'm constantly like, okay, now what more can we do? What more can we do? What more can we do? It's really fun.
And I can see why. Like, honestly, when you say another preset company, that was definitely not meant to diminish what you're doing. It is massively impressive. And for me, like, I wanted to kind of get a bit of an idea of where Goodlight started and the progression you've gone through as a company in the kind of packs that you're releasing, because unlike a lot of companies, you're not getting rid of older products as you kind of move on. You're leaving them available to people. You're one of the few profile manufacturers that seems to have a product that works incredibly well with basically every camera brand. And that's for all the way from Pack 1 to your most recent release, which is Pack 5. And I wanted to talk a little bit more about how somebody coming into the Goodlight kind of website would approach choosing a profile pack. Like, how would you recommend somebody look at each one? If you wanted to start with Pack 1 and then work through in sequence, you can. If you have a personal favorite, I'd love to hear about that too.
It all began in a parking lot buying a breakfast sandwich.
It did. It did.
It did. It did. We shot film. So Pack 1 is based on Fuji 400H, and it was, completely based on Fuji, and it was the beginning. I think that we did update Pack 1 a little bit, but it's been a little while. A lot of people still use it and kill it. I think that, I used Pack 1 for many years. Pack 2 is black and white, and it's based on multiple different black and white film stocks. And then Pack 3 is based on Kodak Ektar. So we actually shot film and then did a lot of back end processing to get the look exactly what we wanted. Pack 4 was with Eric McVeigh, and it's massive. It's it's an all-in-one. It's an amazing pack. And then Pack 5 is Austin's beauty, and it's all I've been using for since we came out with it too. So yeah, every time when we think that we can't do something else and then come up with something else, it ends up being all that I use, going forward. So Austin, you probably dive a bit deeper into that.
It's interesting because, like Cody was saying, once we come out with a new pack, we kind of get excited about it, and then we start using that nonstop. And it's interesting. But then recently, I had some branding headshots taken of me that are in a more like commercial style that I wanted, and I ended up editing with Pack 1 again because Pack 1 has like a very clean, nice, normal, natural look, and that's sort of I every time I think, oh, I'm not going to use Pack 1 again, eventually I start editing something and I go, oh, I guess I don't want everything to look like crazy filmy. I think that like basically when people ask us which pack they should use or what we recommend, like Cody was saying, like Pack 1 is Fuji 400 and we kind of call it the more vanilla pack. I recommend anyone use it for commercial photography, something they want a clean look. Pack 2 is just black and whites. Pack 3 Pack 3 is Ektar, and Ektar is just like the wildest film in the world. It's like super difficult to like make a one look with Ektar, so Pack 3 is kind of wild. It's all over the place, and I recommend that if someone wants something that's like very colorful and lots of color shifts. And that's like the hardest pack to use, quote unquote, because Ektar itself as a film is one of the craziest films. You can send like a scan to 5 different labs and you'll get like 5 different looks, and there's just like purples and greens everywhere. It's pretty crazy. Pack 4 is the Eric McVeigh pack, which Cody was saying it's like the biggest pack. I love Pack 4 is the one I'm most proud of because it was like the one that really set us forth and like really committing to Goodlight. It's very going and working with Eric for those 3 days in Oregon was really, really eye-opening for me. Like, I'm an experienced photographer, but then like seeing Eric work was like totally mind-blowing. And then making that pack and seeing what other photographers in the industry are doing with it, I think that's like probably the thing I'm most proud of with Goodlight. We look at our feed and we see everyone posting with Pack 4. It's just like, I feel really, really good. And then Pack 5, like I got bored and I bought a film camera. I bought a Fuji class film camera just for no reason. It's like this teeny little fun camera. And I just bought it because I was bored and shot a few rolls of like Kodak Gold and Ultramax. And then like liked the way those film scans looked, and I started tweaking with stuff. And I messaged Cody. I was like, "Hey, I think I made a new preset that we can use." And Cody was.
I was like, "Go away! Like, I don't even want to talk about it. I don't even." It was like in the
And I was
middle
like,
of
no, I think,
crazy season. I'm like, nope, nope.
yeah, I think I forced him to do it to make it because I didn't know how to. I just know how to like kind of make it roughly, but he's the one who knows how to like mess with LUTs and things. Um, so I basically like forced him to do it by posting like previews in the Goodlight group and then watching everyone go nuts over them. And I was like, look, see, everyone likes them. Now you have to make them. And then he made them, and it's been one of the most successful packs. And pack 5 is interesting because we've gotten a really great response from it. But it is one of the most heavy-handed packs as far as like when you edit, like if you edit specifically like direct flash, dance floor, wedding photos, it gives you that point and shoot film, lo-fi, colorful look that you get from Kodak Gold, which I love. But it's like nothing like the rest of our packs. So it's kind of interesting that we've moved in this direction.
And I loved that description as well, because as you said, these are all inspired by foam. But one of the things that made me happiest was that you've not kind of compromised the one-click approach to get to kind of make it 100% look like film. It's kind of like you've inspired by 400H, but you're not going to introduce all the kind of magenta in the highlights that you would normally get to an overpowering degree. You're making sure that everything's tempered by good taste, I would say. So rather than thinking like, what is the most clinically accurate version of 400H we could produce, you're trying to capture the feeling without compromising on the workflow. And for me, that has been incredible. Like I remember that I either bought or you sent me the pack 1 like way back at the beginning, and I absolutely loved that pack. And then I remember shooting one of my last ever weddings in the Dominican Republic when pack 3 was in beta, and working on those images and being blown away with how well it balanced the color with ease of use, because I wasn't used to shooting in that direct sunlight, those kind of harsh conditions. And you did such a good job of producing something that evoked a feeling, like made you feel something about the images really quickly. And it never got to the point where it was overpowering. It was never too much. It was always kind of sitting in that pocket of looks like film, but maybe if you put a film scan right next to it, it wouldn't perfectly match. But that didn't matter because most people don't do that.
I think people have a misunderstanding of film. I look at it more of as a raw photo, as in it can go any place you want it to go. And so much of the way that we think about film and the look that we have, I think, in mind is lab based. It's lab based, it's scanner preference based, and we have this specific look a lot of times that we want to achieve. And that look came through the industry. And you had specific labs that started to have specific looks. And if you wanted that look of that photographer, you would go to this lab. And I think that people just have a misunderstanding of film in general, that it can go any place that you want it to go. And one thing that we didn't want to do in the beginning is and that's also why we didn't name them specific film names, is we didn't want to get stuck in this exact film look. And a lot of times we'll have people post in a group and they'll post film and digital side by side, and people will say, is it okay that I like the digital better? And we started to see that more and more and more, that people started to prefer the digital look. And I think a lot of that came with pack 4 as well, with especially with Eric making a big transition to change the way that he was shooting, and shooting wide lenses, small apertures, and just completely change the look. And having a film vibe, but having a very specific look that matched his style. And I think that that's one of the biggest things that we wanted to do with Goodlight, is we didn't want to just get stuck in these exact film looks. We wanted a broader, unique feel that was its own thing, that had the beauty of film, but had its own thing. And that was the biggest goal to us in the beginning. And it's funny because right in the beginning, we didn't even want to market to the wedding industry. Thinking back, this is a long time ago, but we had conversations, hey, how do we do this and not get stuck in the wedding industry? Which is super funny today. But yeah, we didn't want to get stuck in these exact film looks in this exact industry. We wanted to have a very broad, open look. And I think that has happened quite a bit. And like Austin was saying a few minutes ago, like I go into the group, I go into these feeds, and I'm just like, I quit. Because what people have been doing with these, it just blows my mind. I mean, it's crazy. And I don't see myself as the best editor, but what people have been able to do with these tools it just blows my mind. And it's pretty cool to watch.
I definitely agree with what you were saying about the lab-based results that people got used to, especially when we were talking about when Richard Photolab was at its height. Everybody wanted that 400H overexposed look. Nobody was particularly trying anything different. And for me as a UK photographer, we lost a lot of our good labs a lot sooner than you guys did. Right now, we only have a handful of film labs that work at a professional level, and the vast majority of them are using Noritsu scanners. So that film look that we're all identifying with is usually Portra 400 or Fuji 400H exposed a certain way, scanned on a Fuji Frontier, and that just doesn't exist here anymore. Like, there are some labs that do it, but the way that they're being operated and the volumes they're operating at just does not lend itself to the look that you were used to. So when I saw you guys release Pack 5, that's the look. Like, Pack 5 looks an awful lot like the kind of the way that labs are now processing film on these kind of like high volume scanners with more consumer grade film. That Kodak Gold 200 on a Noritsu look is something that's hugely popular right now. And I think for a lot of people out there, it's more important if they are shooting hybrid to be able to match their film to something that has that vibe. So when you're saying to me that Austin had to post it in the group to convince you, like, I can see why it's worked, because the landscape's changed. Like, that's the reality for a lot of people. Like, they can't get Portra 400 anymore. Their lab isn't scanning the way they used to scan, and as a result, they're having to make a change. And it is a growing pain that a lot of people are going through. They don't want to lose the kind of the process that they love in film, but they need to be able to provide a consistent, cohesive product. So that's really awesome. And to kind of go back to your point about developing along the same lines as Eric making his switch from film to film and digital, could you talk a little bit more about how that process went? Because there's a bit of context. Goodlight Pack 4 is one of the only preset packs I've ever seen that instantly translates to like the overcast dull light that we get in the UK. Like, in the States, like, obviously he's from the Pacific Northwest, but most preset manufacturers trying to ape the film look seem to be solely focused on that kind of California vibe. And I just can't thank you enough for building a product that works in every lighting situation and not just in golden light.
Yeah, I think Cody's the best one to answer this, but I'll just give a brief little answer. I think that working with Eric and seeing his transition to film was due to a few things, and Cody can tell like the story behind that. But Fuji was like announced to be canceled. So Fuji 400H they were announcing it that it was over. That was a huge, movement in the industry that affected everyone, including Eric, because that's all he shot. And then about the overcast comment, we got to Oregon and it was like the most overcast time. And I remember being disappointed initially because I live in Florida and I love bright light, and half the time I don't know what to do when it's overcast. And then when we got number one, Eric's images from his Fuji GFX, and then the scans back, and we were able, like you said, to make images, I was like, wow, these are insanely gorgeous. That's when I was like, okay, this is going to be huge. But yeah, I'll let Cody tell the story of how that transition occurred.
Yeah, I think that it was Fuji announcing that they wanted to cancel, or that they had planned on canceling 400H, that brought this all on with Eric. And I called him up, and because we had talked before, like, hey, let's do something. And he was just hesitant on some things. And then when that happened, I called him up. I'm like, hey, buddy, let's do something with this. And he said, okay, let's go.
But Cody, what about Hawaii?
Oh yeah. So I shot with him. He shot he shot Miles Teller's wedding in Hawaii, and I was shooting with him on that. And he had to have those images to Vogue that night. Like, he couldn't get the images to PhotoVision fast enough to get them. I think he had to get them images by like 2-3 in the morning. So he used Goodlight to get those, and then he got his film back, and then he he ended up matching with his film. So he said that his big thing was he didn't want to get this big feature on Vogue and then not be able to deliver photos to them. That was one of the big things that pushed him more into the digital realms, is that he just had to get these images to them quickly. And I think that a lot of the look started to change. If we look back just a short time, you couldn't get published on most big blogs, magazines, anything if it wasn't film. And a lot of people shooting hybrid, they just shot hybrid just to get that a little bit of film so that they could say that to whatever pick publication. It had to be film basically. And if it was digital, they just didn't want it. And I can understand that a little bit because, I mean, 5, 6, 7 years ago, digital wasn't that great. And it's finally come to this point in the last 5 years, 4 or 5 years, that I do believe that is changed, especially with the GFX and then those cameras from that point on. Everything has changed. It's a big change. We see a big change in the industry. Yeah, so that's what happened with Eric. The weather was bad, and I'm glad that it was what it was, because that did allow us to develop that look. And I don't know if we would have developed that same type of look if we wouldn't have had those conditions. And the beauty of his pack is, like what you said, it likes to be darker. And if I look back at images that I edited 7 years ago, I'm like, what the heck? I'm blinded. I'm like, oh my gosh, how did somebody book me again? But yeah, I think that's that change in the industry, especially with Eric's look. And it's a funny pack. Austin knows this. We developed, I think, 200 and something Luts with pack 4.
Cody developed 200 Luts.
Him and my wife Tiffany, and we've shot together forever. She's like, Cody, you have to get this down to 9. And I'm like, I can't do it. So it was a big thing. It was a big deal, and we had to narrow it down to exactly what he needed, what he wanted in his look. What was the question? Here I'm just rambling.
What was it like helping him along the journey to transition to digital? Was the broad question. The story you're telling is great. Like, follow that tangent.
I think that we had to give the tool set for it to happen.
So with Eric, I think one of the big things number one, shooting in Hawaii, getting images turned over to Vogue quickly helped convince him and show him that, like, okay, digital can work. The GFX, which I'm not sure if it was you, Cody, but he got the GFX, and either Cody or multiple people sort of helped him along the way to figure that out. And as we know, like, the files from that camera are like just so wonderful and beautiful, and the camera is actually usable as opposed to like other medium format digitals that just for weddings are just not feasible to use. So those two things really helped. Fuji 400 got discontinued, so it was basically like a perfect storm of things to make Eric say, okay, let's make this transition to digital. And it was super humbling, because I consider myself like I really love my own work. I love photography. I consider myself very talented, but Eric shot for 10 minutes in Oregon, like manually focusing on a GFX, and just showed me the back of his camera, and the images were like just mind-blowingly beautiful. And so then that actually put a lot of pressure on me. I kind of felt, after those 3 days, we came home and we had these beautiful images, and I was like, oh my gosh, we have to make a Be Really Good preset because, like, if we don't, this was a lot of work for nothing. And Eric put in so much effort and like really killed it. And luckily, yeah, I didn't really have any doubts, but Cody actually way surpassed any expectation I had for how good the preset was going to look. Looking at little fine details, and of course, now that we're in this industry of preset creation, every time I look at images, I look at like the color of shadows, the color of highlights. Like, I just look at all these different things combined whenever I look at edits. It is a good thing we had an overcast day in Oregon with Eric, because sometimes you don't get those colors. You don't get that exact look if you just have like super bright light, lots of fill off the ground, and everything's even. You know what I mean? So the fact that we did have more moody light, fall off in shadows, lots of like difficult lighting, quote unquote, helped us create something that I think looks really good. Because now when I go back and I edit with like pack 1 or pack 3 specifically, pack 3, like, brightness makes the preset look like entirely different. If it's a dark image, pack 3, you pick one. Oh my gosh, like you can look totally wrong, and then all of a sudden you slide the brightness up and you're like, oh, there it is. Okay. Whereas with pack 4, do whatever you want with it and create something beautiful.
Yeah, and we shot in multiple different locations. Like if people haven't seen the video of that, I still go back and watch it sometimes. I love it. The documentary on that whole shoot is very cool. And we shot in a lot of conditions. We shot on the water. That light, it was low light all day. We shot in a field. It was low light, completely socked in clouds that whole day. The day before that we went scouting, it was beautiful. It was like blue skies.
I know.
It was an amazing day. And I'm glad that we didn't have that. Even when we shot in the studio in his house, no lighting.
It was
just, he has a huge window and it was dark. So all the film that we shot, that pack is based on multiple different film stocks. And all the film that we shot, it just worked out so good. And yeah, the thing about these presets too is because they're LUT based, because of the way that they're built, there's luminance factors in this, there's RGB values, there's all kinds of different things built into these LUTs, and they change based on luminance. So especially even like pack 5, when you increase the exposure, when you edit, you see a complete different look. So they are basically infinitely variable. And the wild thing about these profiles is, and we've joked about this, if we had to go back and rebuild some of this stuff, we couldn't. They're basically like fingerprints. I could not go back in even like M1 in Eric's pack. I couldn't go back and do that again. It is a completely unique thing. I'm not going to get into the specifics of it, but it is totally unique. And if we lost everything, if we lost all the cloud backups, if we lost everything, we couldn't make it again. So I love that aspect of it. They're not copyable. We couldn't copy them if we wanted to. I couldn't recreate the same look if I wanted to. And the beauty of that also is I think that it also gives photographers that ability to have a unique look because they have infinite variability. And I think that we talked about this a little while ago, Tom, with the new Panasonic S5 II, in having the ability to load a preview LUT. And with the previous generation, the S1, you could load in a preview LUT, but it was only for video, and it was only a preview LUT. Now with the new S5 II, which I haven't touched, but I used to shoot Panasonic, with the new S5 II, you can load in a LUT and you can use it in photo mode. So you can have your own specific look and output a JPEG with that look. And I think that that's going to be the next shift in the industry. I think that it needs to be a shift in the industry, that we get back to a point that when you shot weddings or anything on film let's say in the 80s and 90s, you didn't sit at a computer and edit all this stuff. You got it back and you sent the files out. And I think that we might get back to the point in the industry that we can output a file out of a camera, and in a way, not just like shooting Canon and shooting like portrait or landscape mode or standard mode. We may get to the point soon that we can output a unique JPEG that we don't have to go and play with, that we don't have to go in and edit. And I think that may be the next big shift in the industry. We'll see.
I'm going to go one step further and say that there's something more advanced that's already here, because we did have this conversation for definite. And since then, I've done more research. And actually, for those that don't know, again, I've switched to Fujifilm. I use Fujifilm X-H2Ss, and I've got a GFX sat on the desk as well. But the reason I did that is actually because Fujifilm have integrated with a company called Frame.io, and it means you can literally take a photograph and it will appear on your computer. So I've built a workflow that would essentially allow me, if I wanted to take a photograph and open my iPad with an internet connection and have it already edited, like while I'm shooting. Because I think you're right. I think the idea that we should be able to just take the photograph and know exactly every chain of the process that's going to happen to it, and be able to shoot in a way that's disciplined enough that you could deliver instantly by having a workflow that's efficient enough that you don't have to do anything on the tail end. You might want to be able to adjust the white balance or the exposure, so you might choose not to shoot in JPEG, but there are already tools that exist that make it possible for you to shoot completely on the fly, build a process, and do minimal to no editing and get a final result ready to publish. One of the times we worked together most closely, Cody, was when we were looking at Capture One as a possibility for Goodlight a while ago. And in the end, this hasn't panned out, but it's a Capture One limitation and nothing to do with Goodlight. Capture One has a terrible implementation of color profiles. It's like designed for print and not for like kind of camera calibration. So it is a little bit of a different situation. But one of the things that struck me there was when I did use Goodlight in Capture One, I could shoot tethered to the laptop in a studio situation and then just literally just give it to the client straight away. It didn't need to have anything done to it because I could see the result on the screen as I was shooting, and the client could see the result, and that was it. Everything was finished. There was no need to do any further work. So I understand what you're saying about the JPEG option and seeing something unique in the camera, but I think we've already got a more powerful solution that's here. And I just think as we see more and more camera companies adopt this technology, like Sony just announced a feature similar to this for their newest generation of cameras, I think we're going to see a shift away from people spending extensive amounts of time editing at home, because I think they're going to realize the efficiency that you can get if you are methodical in your shooting approach and you know the result you want to get.
Absolutely. I mean, look at Austin. Austin will post stuff in the group and it's like, no change in exposure, as shot white balance, and not a single slider changed. And it's like, okay, that's cheat mode. And yeah, it's I think that's coming. It's coming. It's with these presets. It's with the help of new cameras, and yeah, I think the industry is changing for sure.
Have either of you seen this photographer he's in one of the GFX groups, I think. So I think we're all in a few different Fuji GFX groups, but he shot, it was like London Fashion Week or something. And it was all GFX with the 53.5. Is that a lens? Yeah. So he shot all 53.5 and he shot JPEG, and he has his own little Fuji, like he's messed with the profile, and he posted all these images, and they're like some of the best images I've seen in forever. And it's just like, it goes to show you what's possible now.
Are you talking about Simbarash Char?
I think so.
He's a New York fashion photographer.
Maybe it was New York. I thought it was London.
No, I think you're right. I think the images that you posted would have been London Fashion Week, because he does Milan, London, Paris, basically anywhere there's street style going on, he's usually involved. And yeah, exactly that. He's using these recipes in his camera to get the JPEGs to look exactly the way he wants, because for him, it's like you were saying about Eric, there is no time. Like if he's going to deliver those images, he'll have thousands of photographs to cull through, and then he just has to publish them, and that's it. There's no, you can't also have a color grade going on at the same time. That has to happen ahead of time. That's like, do your research and development, get the results out of the camera to where you're pleased with them, and then publish. And like I said, for me, I think it's efficient, but I think it's efficient not taking advantage of some of the technology we have now to kind of do this stuff in a more kind of like nuanced way later. But there's no denying that Simbarash's work is incredible. And if you haven't seen it, again, I'll put a link to it in the show notes, assuming that's the right person that we're talking about.
I think it is, yeah.
Now, if you look at a lot of, just like I said before, with that everything had to be film not too long ago, I would say that we're seeing a complete flip-flop of that, even. That we're seeing very unique looks on a lot of publications. We're seeing a lot more variance in the individual shoot. Whereas in the past, when I would edit a wedding, I would have skin tones and luminance and everything be like unbelievably consistent from start to finish. And now we even see a huge shift in people's editing styles, that you'll see a lot of different looks in the same shoot: front light, backlight, slow shutter, tight aperture, wide open, movement, blur. We see a lot of different looks just in individual catalogs. And yeah, I like what's happening with all of that.
Kind of wanted to ask you the inevitable questions about the convergence of stills and video, because I'm on the record as saying that I genuinely do believe that video is the future, as more and more people have cameras in their hands that can take incredibly stable, beautiful looking, like powerful footage. And personally, because I've had access to some of the Luts that you guys have produced, like to test, and I can see how beautiful the Goodlight product looks on video footage. I just wondered how you guys felt about that move. Like, do you feel that is an inevitability, like at the mid range of the market? Do you feel that there's room to kind of make products that cater for both? Because to give you my use case, like I'd literally use Goodlight on any job that I have that I'm hired to shoot video and stills, because there is nobody makes a stills product and a video product that matches as well as yours does. And I'm happy to go on the record as saying that if somebody wants to prove me wrong, I'm ready to be proved wrong. But we did A/B comparisons. There's a YouTube video, again, link in the show notes, that shows you just how good Goodlight is on video footage. So with that in mind, and knowing the value of the product you have, how do you feel about this convergence? Do you think it's something that is going to happen in future, or do you think there's going to be a change in the industry? Where do you see video sitting against photo going forward?
Tom, what you showed me out of that Fuji a few weeks ago blew my mind. I think that it's completely possible. I think that video slightly changes the feel of the client on the other side. I think that the sound of a shutter is important to a degree. I think certain sectors of photography, especially like a completely photojournalistic type, I could see shooting video and that completely working. I think that, I don't know. I don't know what the feel is going to be on the client side of that. Because if I just viewed myself, like let's say I go to an engagement shoot, and if I was just shooting video, I don't know if the direction, if the feel of the shoot is going to be exactly the same. And maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe it's completely possible. But when you showed me those files a few weeks ago, I was just, it blew me away. And what you're saying with being able to use the Luts with that and matching to photo it's a huge deal. But I don't know, Austin, what do you think? I mean, we both shoot a Z9 now lately, and I go back and forth because I'm crazy with the GFX and the Z9, and I have way too much stuff. But with the Z9, I mean, I was shooting an engagement the other day, and I shot at 20 something frames a second. And if I shot that fast the whole time, I would culling would be a nightmare. But for certain segments, it was very cool. So what do you think about these high speed cameras and video and all that?
Yeah, I think that the convergence of video and photo has already happened in every other aspect of photography. So with weddings, I don't think that the expectation that a photographer will also offer video and vice versa has hit yet. But just like back, maybe 20 years ago, it came that if you were let's say you were a reporter, you were a newspaper writer, you were a columnist, you were like a correspondent, they just kind of started saying, okay, you have to also now take pictures because we don't want to hire a journalist and a photographer. We just want to hire a photojournalist. Like there's almost no such thing as a field journalist anymore. I mean, there are, but now you have to be a photographer and a journalist. And now you have to be a photographer, a journalist, and you have to take video because every feature and every, article and everything ends up having some photo, some video, and then like the print. And so I think that's happened and will continue to even more happen in the future, to the point where, like Tom, like you were saying, I don't know if people will consume much that isn't video in the future. Like things like TikTok, things like Instagram stories just capture people's attention so much more. And I think that, that video is the future. I suspect that with the wedding industry and with portraits and things like that, this will two things will happen. More and more studios will pop up that offer photo video, and they'll have a team that does both, and it will be very important to have consistent edits between them both. And then also this other thing also occurs where when things become less specialized, I think that then that creates extra ultra specialized markets where there will always be someone who's strictly a photographer, does not do video, maybe shoots even more film. Like maybe in 20 years, there'll be some crazy person who literally is still like, oh, nope, I only shoot film. And that's cool. I love that. I love that like those things still occur where when the expectation is that everyone does, video and stills, people will still say, nope, I specialize in just this. So I think that both will happen simultaneously. And, from my perspective, I can't remember the last time I read a camera review or read through anything, to be honest with you. Like if I'm interested in something, I'm going to go to YouTube. I'm going to watch the video on it. Because it's just a much more interesting way, like recipes. When I want to know how to cook something, I never read the recipe. I go watch a YouTube video because someone can actually show me how it works. And I think a similar thing is going to happen. Well, it has already happened with everything else, with the caveats of in the wedding industry or whatever, there will always be like hyper specialization. But yeah, video for sure it's the future.
What you described is essentially how my business works now. I definitely see myself as more of a photographer. Like I always have been a photographer. Like I bought a GFX because I like taking photographs and have absolutely no designs on ever using this for video because it's terrible at it. Like no offense, Fiji, but it's not great. But the point being that when I book a client, if they want to come to me and they want to give me the whole budget, that means I have to cater for video because they're going to need video content. And if I'm going to them and pretending to be a solution to their brand problem, which is that people will understand that it's their images they're seeing when they come to kind of like interact with their social media accounts or digital signage in store or any of this stuff, it has to have a feel to it and it has to be consistent. Now, that doesn't mean that I have to put my personal stamp on it. It just means that if I'm going to treat the video one way and the stills completely differently, that client is likely to push back because like, well, we hired you for your look and this isn't your look, plain and simple. So when I'm considering clients that are asking for both, I might choose to use Goodlight rather than another company's like offering because I know 110% that those images are going to match those videos. They're going to be flawless. And that for me is a determining factor in more jobs than I care to admit. Like when I'm doing stuff like this, like talking to camera, like I have to record myself. And I think the reality is that for a lot of people, the brand side of their own businesses, their own advertising is going to involve making video of themselves or like publishing video that somebody else has taken of them. And if they are people that consider themselves to be strong visually and have a strong visual identity, if it looks completely different, you can end up with a brand disconnect. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Like exactly the same way as we don't expect an iPhone to look like your photography. But I think that we're going to see a time come soon where people start thinking that the iPhone isn't just authentic, it's just easy. And that kind of more consistent brand experience becomes more important. And it's interesting to hear you both talk about it because what you're basically describing is, as you said, Austin, every other industry outside of weddings has already experienced this. You couldn't do a hospitality shoot and not expect them to want some kind of video content at some stage. You can't build these long-term relationships without knowing that on some level they're going to have to commission either somebody else for the video piece and you won't get that budget, or they're going to not produce any video content, but they have to have a pretty strong brand reason to do that because it's clear that that's what the social platforms want and what people are consuming. So knowing how important like good color is to you and making sure that you have that consistent feeling between stills and digital, because it obviously it's a core competency. It's how you started the business. Like you mentioned before that you're going to be doing something new for people. So if they have decided to invest in your color presets, your color profiles, they'll have another option. Could you talk a little bit more about what's available for video shooters that also shoot stills?
We have Pack 1, Pack 3, and Pack 4 available as LUTs. We don't have Pack 4 listed on the site, on the LUT page, but if you add Pack 4 to the cart, then you can add the pack for Luts on as an add-on.
So yeah, so as Cody said, we have pack 1, pack 3, and pack 4. One of the things about Cody and I is that we had very little video experience whatsoever before we made these presets. And then because of our interest in why video creators were able to make such beautiful film-like edits, that's what led us down the LUT path. But even now, we still don't have a lot of video experience. We don't color grade things. Like we're coming at this from a photography standpoint. And most LUT companies are producing something that's very like Peter McKinnon style, like very moody, very like punchy, very whatever you want to call it. Videographers that we know that we're friends with and sort of had discovered that we were making these based around LUTs asked us, hey, can I get the LUTs? Can I get these? Can we edit video with these? And Cody and I were like, I think so. I don't know. You tell us. And so we've kind of, I think you were one of them, Tom. Haven't you helped us with this? I don't know.
Yep. And I loved it. It was amazing.
So people like you have helped us sort of transition this into a way for video creators to edit. And this actually happened the other day. I didn't tell you, Cody, but a local videographer here got the LUTs and started editing some video from a wedding we just shot together. And it's hilarious because he goes, this is insane. I just used this LUT at 75% and this is what it looks like. And it looks just like the stills that I was producing, from that same wedding. And I didn't realize what a big deal that was. And as you're saying, Tom, it is a big deal for someone who, especially when wedding video oftentimes is, I don't want to call it an afterthought, but it's usually picked down the line, like from a bride and groom's perspective or a bride and, like just someone who's hiring a wedding professional. Video oftentimes comes like third. Sometimes it's like venue, photographer, band or DJ, and then video is sort of like considered. And so it's not that they don't care about the videographer or their art form, but oftentimes they're hiring a photographer with that aesthetic in their mind. And when they get a video that it maybe is beautiful, but just is so far departed from those photos, it can leave the client a little confused or disappointed, or just like the expectations don't align. And so if you're a wedding videographer and you want to match the overall wedding aesthetic, I think our presets were one of the first and are some of the only ones that you can do that with. And, part of that is the technology converging. Profiles and LUTs interact with each other. These cameras now are all the same cameras. We're shooting with the same cameras, whether it's stills or video. And now it allows us to do that. And so, from a creative standpoint, we, when the few times we have to make videos for commercials and we like launch new products and we have Black Friday sales, I went, as no experience whatsoever. I went into a field with a model. We did a quick little video shoot. I made a 30-second ad. I cut it together in Final Cut and threw one of our LUTs on it at like 65% and sent it to Cody. And that's all I did. And he was like, this is perfect. I was like, I was like, wow, this video thing really is. Part of me was like, this is easy. And then part of me was like, actually, this is way harder. But it was nice that someone like me with no experience could make the video match everything else I was doing. So
I do think that you kind of come in at the right time too, though, because you've not known the pain of having to edit like 8-bit footage and like try and make it stretch. It's like, imagine the worst exposed JPEG you've ever seen, and that's basically what you had to start with, like until recently. And what Cody was referring to earlier when he said, oh, the footage you showed me. So on the Fuji X-H2S, it captures the whole sensor. So it's a 3:2 image in 6K, and it does it with like 15 stops of dynamic range. So what I'd done was I'd used Goodlight to color grade to match some stills I'd done on a test shoot and over sharpened it a little bit for video. And then I sent him a screenshot and he thought it was a still. Like it's that simple.
Yeah.
Like viewed at 100%, 1-to-1 detail. The grain was the same. The sharpness was the same. The color was the same. I have never experienced that with any other product. And there's nothing like it. And to say that that's revolutionary is an understatement. And you guys are shooting with the Nikon Z7 or Z7, Z9 or Z9, whichever one you want to say. You guys have got a camera that's a bit of a unicorn, because Nikon is literally getting sued by Red right now. Like, because they broke Red's patent. Like, Red has this industry on lockdown. But the outcome of that case might mean that every camera can have compressed raw video going forward. And if that happens, like, there's going to be a quantum shift in the industry. You don't have to worry about frame rate anymore, because if your camera can shoot 60 frames a second on video, you've got 60 raw files every second.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to change things. And like you said, Austin, I think it's going to come down to eventually, how good are your color processing skills? How good is your sense of a moment? And is there a way you could do something significantly different by not using those tools and doing something else? And it's just going to be a reality of the industry in the future. And for me, I'm trying to kind of follow up with educational offerings that help photographers to get from not really knowing how to process their images to knowing exactly what they want to say with their photographs, and then working out how they can say it with video as well and keep things consistent. Because the other thing that we kind of wanted to talk about, and I'm not sure if we have time today, so this may be a topic for another day, was AI and its role in the editing process going forward. Like, obviously we're running up to like an hour at this point, so if you guys have got time, we can talk about it. If not, don't worry about it. We'll do it another time. But I think that's also a really interesting piece, because I think in the future that the differentiating factor is going to be somebody's taste and ability to understand what is and is not their brand will matter far more than any kind of specific piece of technical knowledge. But you're going to need to know how to evaluate your work and how to adjust it to get the results you want, whether you're using AI or just doing it by hand. So yeah, I just wanted to thank you both for being at the forefront of that too.
I think so much is about to shift in the industry. And I think that a lot is shifting in a lot of industries where for the past multiple years, we haven't needed compute power to increase as much as we did in the past. We're seeing compute power not change that much, and we don't need it as much. The new iPhone comes out, the new iPad comes out, the new anything comes out, and it's changing so minutely in the broad sense that we don't need the compute power as much anymore. We see many years ago, we need storage space. We need storage. We need storage, because what do? We all held on to music. We all ripped DVDs. I mean, we're all a little bit older. And I mean, I used to have Napster. I used to have like just massive amounts of storage, just hard drives stacked up with movies and music and all this stuff. Well, what do we say? What do we see now? We don't need storage space. It's all in the cloud. We only watch video. We don't even need the compute power. And now we see AI starting to take place. And AI is going to be a huge shift. We're going to see it in every industry. And we see ChatGPT happening. We see OpenAI. We see even Bing, Microsoft, is changing its whole search engine to now use a ChatGPT type model. And it's going to disrupt truth. It's going to disrupt all kinds of things. It's going to disrupt a lot of industries. And I was listening to a pod the other day that was talking about replacing employees, the AI, how AI will replace employees. And it can't replace an employee until it can replace that employee at 100%. And we are about to see that happen in editing, in all kinds of different things in this industry. And I think being ahead of that is going to be a big thing. And it's funny to me to look at even camera manufacturers, and you look at these phones that we have that combine 20 frames on each frame and then use AI models and all kinds of different things to make amazing photos. And you look at Sony, Panasonic, Fuji, Canon. Who else we got? Pentax, if Pentax is still chilling. Nikon, did I not say Nikon? Like, you guys, who's going to do this? You know? Who is going to be the big... And it seems like, it's so funny because it seems like Fuji is one of the only ones that's really pushing things. When you think that it might be Sony or, you know, it's who is going to go in and shift this industry and put the compute power into these professional cameras so that they'll completely shift the industry. And whoever does that first to output a file that you don't have to touch, it's going to be a huge thing. And you see phones obviously taking over most sectors of photography. And if these camera companies don't step up and make some big changes, I don't know what's going to happen, but somebody needs to.
Yeah, I think that with regard to AI, you know, we recently started editing with some AI. I did some tests, and I got a wedding edited in 30 minutes, and it was like nearly perfect, which is crazy. And that really opened my eyes to what the future is. But what it made me realize is that the AI is only as good as what you give it, right? And so I already have a very good, consistent edit workflow. So for me to have AI trained on how I edit, it was easy because, as Cody was saying, I don't do much. So, I feed an AI thousands of images where it's just my profile and exposure and white balance adjusted correctly the way I want it to. Learned it quickly, easy, done. I think that, like you said, Tom, so the big challenge for people in the future is going to be deciding what to feed the AI, right? Deciding what the AI is going to do for you.
And on top of that, I'm going to stress that again, like louder for people at the back. You make so few changes to your images because you shoot incredibly tight. Like you know exactly what you want to achieve. You've honed your equipment to the point where you can do it in any situation that you ever shoot in. And if you're adjusting anything, it's minor adjustments to kind of make something conform to what you did in camera. And that ultimately, if every photographer could go into like use a service like, I don't know, like Impossible Things or Imagine AI or like Narrative, if theirs ends up being like a big thing, and use any of those services and kind of just give it a book that's as tightly edited as yours with as concise an idea of what they want to say, there's absolutely no issue with AI as far as I'm concerned. The only worries then become, did you previously hire an editor? Are you putting somebody out of a job? But that's definitely more of a kind of a social issue and not so much of an actual results-based one. And the issue comes in for photographers that are not in a position where they have a developed idea of what they want to say or who their audience is or who they're talking to. And then they try and use AI and their style becomes what the AI gives to them. Or we end up in the same situation we had in the film days where if you want to be a fine art wedding photographer, buy a Contax 645, shoot 400H 2 or 3 stops overexposed and send it to Richard's Photo Lab. Like you end up with an issue where you've got like a homogenous offering, and then your clients will have more of an issue picking your work out from a lineup because you're not saying it with any level of authenticity. Like the AI that's editing your work will be editing every other photographer's work. So the quality of your input and providing it with that really strict idea of like, this is what I mean to people, this is what my work should mean to people, is going to become far more important. I really love that you kind of brought that out as well, because for me, my opinion on it's changed a lot. And I still have a problem with the social side of it. Like, I do think it's a shame that essentially that for a large portion of the market, this could put editors out of a job, or it could be a situation where an industry sector that's been pretty thriving up to now is going to be forced to improve or to change. And I also think it's a shame that there's a consolidation of wealth that's going to happen as well. But those are nothing to do with the end result. And I'm really excited for where the actual results are going to go.
I think a lot of stuff is inevitable.
It's one of those things where I see major problems, like you said, Tom, about like editing. Like Cody and I immediately were like, wow, editors are going to either be put out of the job or something's going to happen. But I'm also optimistic in that hopefully people will become creative in the ways that they use AI. So, for instance, I already know of a few editors who are using AI to edit clients' photos because, like you were saying, Tom, maybe those clients haven't honed their style yet. Maybe they haven't been able to feed AI a look that gets them back what they want, but somebody else who's an editor has. And so there are editors already using AI to work for clients and sort of make it work for them. I'm really, really hopeful that, people might get these tools and then it'll hopefully create new jobs. I'm hopeful on the outside. I'm pessimistic on the inside. Yeah, I see a lot of problems, but yeah, the problem only becomes when the wealth divide becomes so great. I mean, if we can just pull money and resources out of thin air because of AI, hopefully that can, spread throughout the world and sort of help us just all do better and prosper more. But yeah, also doesn't seem to be happening that way.
Yeah, there's a couple movies about these topics.
And then he took my boots, my motorcycle.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
Sorry, it was a Terminator reference. Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Just talking about Skynet.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Skynet goes live. Yeah, I know.
But with all that said, guys, like we've been running for like over an hour and we've ended on like a very doomful note. So maybe we should kind of switch up to something a little bit more positive and then like wrap up a little bit just to let you guys get back to your families.
I think the exciting thing that I'm seeing right now is even though like what you just said, tight, I like that word tight, that things will tighten up in a way. What I'm also seeing though is creativity is blossoming. I'm seeing so many different types of styles emerging. And I mean, I can go through the Instagram Explore feed and I'm just like, what the heck? Like Goodlight, I'm just seeing this look change. And I'm seeing a lot of things, a lot of creativity and a lot of variance. Even though that we could look at AI as bringing down variance, I'm seeing things open up and becoming more variable. And I'm seeing more creativity and more unique looks coming out of people that we haven't seen in the past multiple years. And I think that that's the exciting thing is you're going to see a broadening in a way of creativity. And I think that's the exciting thing to me. And I think that that's what we plan on staying ahead of, especially with this AI, and giving people the tools really to stay authentic and to stay in a new, in a blossoming form of creativity. And I think that that's a big deal.
I think you're right. And again, like you said, it's another job that you don't have to do. And especially at the kind of entry level of the market, once you have an established style, it means you can be more aggressive pricing wise, customers can benefit, or you can get more time and you can work more volume in the jobs that you're doing. There's a lot of positives to come with it. And again, any hesitance I've got, the more I learn about it, the less hesitant I get, largely because of what Austin said. It's never going to replace the creativity. It's just another tool in the quiver that you're going to have to learn how to use and how to implement effectively. But with that said, guys, like, thank you very much for volunteering so much time to chat with me. I massively appreciate it. And just to kind of finish off, did you guys want to give us a quick outro and just kind of let everybody know where they can contact you, where to find out more information about Goodlight, and any follow-ups if they want to know more?
If you want to learn more about Goodlight, you can go to goodlightpresets.com. You can reach out to me individually at Trenholm Photo on my Instagram. You can definitely message me there with questions about Goodlight. Oftentimes, I'll get to your questions quicker if you do it that way. Also, posting in the Facebook group is one of the fastest way to get answers and information about Goodlight presets. Again, Cody and I are really busy full-time traveling photographers on top of all this, which is pretty daunting. But if you want information, the Facebook group is great because not only can Cody and I answer your questions there, there's lots of people who already have the answers even before maybe we've seen them. So I encourage everyone to go check that out. And then we're going to give Tom, if he doesn't already have it, the link to the doc we made with Eric, because Cody reminded me that exists, and it's just like such a fun watch that really gives you insight into our personalities and who we are.
I love that video too. That'll definitely be linked in the show notes below. And if you want to check it out on the website, it'll be embedded in the page along with the podcast. You can have a quick look at it and kind of while you're doing the rest of this and listening to the podcast. Thank you again for listening. Thank you everybody at home. We're looking forward to seeing you again next week. And if you want to know more about Austin and Cody, check out the show notes. Talk to you guys soon. Goodbye.